I'm excited to welcome Ashley Smith, GP and founder of Vermilion Cliffs, known for driving growth at Twilio, GitLab, GitHub, and being an investor, entrepreneur, operator. And I'm excited to have her talking with us on our podcast today. Welcome, Ashley.
Hey there. Good to see you, Scott.
Yeah, so just to start off with, Ashley and I have known each other for quite a long time. She and I worked together at a startup and company called Parse, where I was a lowly account executive. She was the director of marketing, and she basically taught me how to do so many amazing and incredible things in the startup world. And it's been fun to get a chance to bring her back. So actually, we're going to talk about a bunch of things today. Like we talked about your venture fund that you're going to be launching this week, soonish. You want to tell me a little bit about that first?
Yeah, so I'll give you the rundown of the fund. So we'll go into the operating and the larger funds I've worked at, but I decided Scott will tell you I am unmanageable. I don't like working for people, and that's okay. And I've always wanted to do my own thing. And so angel invested for a long time in a very early stage companies, so pre-seed and seed, and am launching my fund. It's called Vermilion Cliffs Ventures. And I do pre-seed and seed, dev, data, infra, security, really anything technical created by technical founders. And I've been going for about a year and a half now, fully raised, which was really interesting. It's a whole different conversation, and have backed about 25 founders already. So it's been really, really fun to work across a lot of different companies that are being embedded into one. And it really does feel like I've found my place in this weird world of tech.
Amazing. I think the fact that you have described yourself as unmanageable, that should probably be, if you ever write a book, that should probably be a great title for a book.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. We were working on the launch, and we have I'm really excited for the launch press and everything to go out, but I wrote this, and you'll see it. It's a 21-page manifesto. I really just, as I started writing and trying to explain how I got into tech and where I'm from and all that, it just got longer and longer and longer. And so the press team that's helping me out was like, you should really make this into a book. And I was like, I'm pretty private. I don't know if I want to do that, but I do think unmanageable is probably the best way. It is the singular word that describes me, I think.
Amazing. So one of the things that I'd love to hear a little bit about is kind of the origin story of Ashley Smith. So we've talked about your venture fund, working at some of basically the best tech companies in the world.
Yep.
And how did you get in? How did you get started with even just Twilio? Where did that begin? How'd you get there?
Yeah, I mean,
high school, Ashley, maybe?
Yeah, no, for most people, my dad was the CEO of Twilio. I'm kidding. That's not it's not how I got in. So I'm from, you'll probably hear my accent. It ebbs and flows these days because I've been out of the South for a while. I think, Scott, you probably remember it being a bit stronger. I don't know. I grew up in South Georgia. Technology is not really a thing down there and still isn't. It's a wonderful place, but I had big dreams for some reason. I don't know why. I can't explain that. Started coding when I was 12 and ended up going to Georgia Tech, which is a great state school and a great engineering school, biomedical engineering, computer science, and just found my people. I had always been the weird kid in the room reading books and playing on my computer. And I got there and I was not the nerdiest person around, which was very new. And yeah, it made me realize I really love technology. And so after college, I don't know when you graduated or when you entered the workforce, but it was right during the giant housing crash and everything was going wrong and there were no jobs, and it's kind of similar to what we're seeing now. But I started just applying for entry-level jobs at startups because a good friend of mine was got into Y Combinator doing his little startups. And I just started applying, and I was either overqualified or underqualified for everything. None of them made sense really. But the one that I applied for, got an interview for, and got hired on the same day was a entry-level job at Twilio, which was basically answering the phone, was the very original job. It was just some people are calling us, customers are trying to talk to us, please talk to them back. I'm not extroverted. So, but I figured it out. And so from there, I started going to all the developer events. I started doing all the website copy, working on the emails that would go out to developers, and just learned the ins and outs of go-to-market from an engineering perspective. So it was by chance that I got that job. I didn't know anybody. I'm so proud that they interviewed me and like took the chance on this person who like they didn't know. And that's how I got into tech, the very first startup role.
And especially like developer focused products, right? Like
Yeah.
Twilio is one of those types of companies, and you continued to take that type of expertise and enhance and refine it as you went further and further.
Yeah, I can't imagine, I appreciate a lot of the startups I see that are selling to other markets or building for other markets. I love selling to and marketing to and building for developers. Like as soon as I got like a few months in, and it wasn't strategic, I wasn't like, I like engineering things, I should work on it. There was no strategy involved. Frankly, I think people when they're like from the age of 5, I knew I wanted to build a developer product and blah, blah, blah. I think that's all not true. I think I found my way into it, and then when I got there, I was like, oh, this really works and this fits. And from there, I never branched out. Like I just stuck to developer facing products and what I know. And I got some feedback a few times of like, you should go do consumer. That way you have a broader view on things. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. But yeah, so I've always worked on technical products. I invest primarily in technical products. I can invest in stuff that's a little bit outside of that. Enterprise software is kind of the bucket. But yeah, mostly like people building tools for developers.
What was it like to sort of shift and transition from Twilio, where, as far as I understand, you're more individual contributor? Were you, I don't know if you were managing people, to Parse, where you were like leading the whole thing?
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit bossy. So like, even if I'm an IC, I'm still kind of everyone around me. And that's okay. But I was an IC across a bunch of different things, but I was creating the thing at Twilio. I was creating the thing and then passing it off to someone that we hired to take that on. I did manage someone. She was incredible. I think she was an intern. She might have been full-time. As you get older, your memory goes. I don't know if you know that yet. So
I don't have that problem yet. I'm only like 39, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Me either. So yeah, I managed someone at Twilio, but I wasn't like, we had an incredible CMO, Linda Smith. Like she's still like, we're very close. And I was so lucky to have her because she really did teach me the like parts of enterprise marketing that I had never seen as it applied to a technical product, which are very different than the go build community, go build developer love, go build a great product that developers want to use. When you layer that enterprise marketing on top of that in enterprise sales, as you know, it just kind of supercharges the ability to actually grow a technical product.
Right. One of the things that really stood out to me, there's two things that when I joined Parse that I remember really well. One, the first one was, it was Halloween and you came into the office wearing a dragon or a dinosaur outfit, onesie.
Dinosaur, how dare you?
Yeah, that was incredible. I thought, okay, this person who I thought was hardcore and intense and I was a little bit scared of, it's like, she's totally cool. She's totally cool. And it was one of those ways that I don't know, was able to see you as like a coworker friend. And that was super cool.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the thing that always surprised me with a lot of your efforts and work was that somehow you figured out how to get us into like TechCrunch, top of YC over and over and over. And I didn't understand it. I still don't understand. Like,
yeah,
how did you figure out how to do that?
I really don't think it was me, right? I mean, I take credit for doing the actual work. Like I'm the person that did the thing. But Parse as a product was so compelling at the time. Like we had, right now we're riding the wave of AI. Some people were riding the wave of crypto and that world. Before that, there was this like whole big data push, right? Like every single few years we see like the new thing we're writing. And I feel like Parse perfectly intersected when mobile took off and people knew they needed a mobile app, but they didn't know what that meant. And mobile developers were still a new thing, right? And so I think that because we were building such a compelling, incredible product, as you know, our engineering team was creating like fantastic content. We were shipping at a crazy rate. We just had great tailwinds because of that. And so then when I would go pitch, I never had a PR team. People always think that I had like a team of people. Like I basically had like me, I had, you obviously, I'd make Hector go to every event on the planet. Like, and then my engineers our engineers were so great that we just all did it together. But I would just go like cold email these like tech crunches and business insiders and whatever the places we were getting coverage. And then when Hacker News, I think organically people were just excited to see what we were launching. I mean, I think we didn't have like this big voting ring of like thousands of people going and upvoting things, right? Like I would definitely be like, hey, we just launched on Hacker News, make sure you go read it and upvote it. But that was just internally to our team, which was only what at the time, 10, 15 people. So
it was tiny.
We weren't gaming the system. We were just launching actually interesting, cool, unique things and doing it at a rate that was insane. That team was just, I've said this publicly before, that team was just one of, if not the best teams I've ever seen, even today.
Yeah, I think like I've worked with a lot of engineers at many different companies.
Yeah.
And I think the desire to market and evangelize and document and talk about what you're creating I was like, wait.
It was amazing.
You're not supposed to be doing this, or at least I've never heard of any engineer who wants to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I to this day, I mean, at other companies, I would always, beg for engineering resources to write a blog post. And I would be like, hey, can we put in the OKRs that if you want to write a blog post, you can do that and you'll get bonus whatever. At Parse, I would have them coming to me with content saying, hey, can we maybe post this? And I was just like, absolutely. Because nobody wants to, like, respectfully to you and I, nobody wants to hear in the developer world, nobody wants to hear about like some random, very businessy thing as it relates to developer products. They want to hear from the people building it. And I think that was always just so powerful from the Parse team. And Twilio was the same way. Like Twilio, we had some great content coming out, but and our engineers were writing. But Parse, it was like every single day I'd have something to talk about, and it wasn't me having to create all the content.
Which is just super nice. So that's actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It was just a very special team to be on, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some of the things I love the most is like I would go work out with one of our engineers. His name was Andrew. He would mock me relentlessly because I couldn't do as many pull-ups as he could. We had an engineer named Hanley who I'd go run with. And it was like, he was the most incredible engineer, but he could also just like run forever, and he just destroyed me every day.
Forever. It's crazy. It's not fair.
Yeah. So like, I think you make a really great point about the team, building a strong team culture. You've worked with so many great teams, so many great companies. And I imagine at least you have some sense for like what makes these teams really great and some of these individuals so strong. Like, do you have any ideas or thoughts on how to build a great team culture? Like, what have you seen? How do you do it?
I think I learned, Jeff Lawson is CEO of Twilio, founder, is one of the strongest CEOs that I've ever been exposed to. And all my CEOs have been incredible. So I never realized that startups could fail because it was just like bam, 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 bam. All my founders are great. All my teams are great. And we had good traction. But I watched Jeff purposely hire people that if they wanted to spin out and start a company, they could. And they took total ownership of the role they were doing and total ownership of the success of that role. And so I think there's something to be said about hiring people that are a little bit quirky, a little bit over the top in ways that are good, and really own the thing that they're doing and want to make, do the best that they can on what they're building. And you kind of see that, like, a lot of the people we work with at Parse now either have their own companies or, are VCs, or they're high level somewhere, or they're still at Google building like really interesting AI tool. Like there's just, everyone was unique and interesting. I think what I learned from Jeff is one time, and it was my mistake, we were interviewing for a role, and I just needed to hire for the particular role. And the person was good enough, but not great. And I said, like, we're probably like 100 people. I remember saying, like, sometimes you just have to start hiring people that are just good enough for the role. And he's like, no, we will only hire great. I was like, okay. And understood. And now I so deeply understand what he meant. And I think that everywhere I've worked has done that. So yeah, I think we just ended up hiring people that were just culturally a great fit. We had such a unique, diverse group of humans from all different backgrounds, bringing very different perspectives at Parse. And we all really had fun. Like, there's not a single person that I probably couldn't just go hang out with even today.
Or at least we wouldn't say it on the recording, right?
I'm sort of like spinning through my head. I'm like, is there anyone I don't want to see? And it's like, we're having parse meetups until, like not recently, but before the pandemic. And I always think like,
Right.
oh, we should do a parse meetup soon because it really is such a strong group of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the one of the memories that I have that really it still annoys me like really deeply is we were hiring for a role at Parse, and it was just at like this beginning stage where we were started to interview for, I feel like it was like a product marketing manager or like something like that. And we were still at Parse, we were still our own company, and maybe it was like an AE, but whatever. And I remember we kept bringing candidates to Ilya, and Ilya was just like, nope, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough.
Yeah.
And it just drove me crazy. I was like, dude, I'm so overwhelmed. Like, we just need more people. But yeah, I felt like it was a similar vibe with him.
He was exactly the same way and still is. Like, Ilya expects excellence. And if you bring him a candidate and he says they're not good enough at the time, he probably had a good reason why. And I trust his judgment. And yeah, I think you have to, if there's ever a doubt in your mind that someone maybe isn't like, they're great for right now, but not for maybe the next 3 years, it's probably not the right person.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So after Parse, there was Facebook. There's
oh yes, Facebook.
Yeah. So tell me about Facebook. Like, as somebody who is unmanageable, surrounded by managers, it
didn't work out.
Yeah.
No, I think
well, you were there for a while, right? So like, you figured out how to transition from startup to giant company growing incredibly fast.
Yeah. Wow. It's funny. I just caught up with Julian a few weeks ago, and we were laughing at how.
By the way, for anyone who's listening, who is Julian? Just to give some context.
Yeah. So Julian was on the business when we got acquired. There was like a group of executives that were sort of representative of different parts of Facebook, trying to help shepherd Parse into Facebook. And so Julian was on the business side. And so Julian, I think you have to help me with this. He was leading sales partnerships. I think he was your manager at some point.
I had like 10 managers, but he was definitely one of them.
He was like, yeah. And so he was just like, he also expected excellence. And I'm walking in from a perspective where like, I've always been like queen bee within reason, right? And I now have someone asking me about metrics and blah, blah, blah. And all these questions from more of a sales perspective. So like, think about like sales enablement versus, community building, but he deeply understood both pieces. But he pushed me really hard to frankly up level the way I thought about the way I led marketing. And at the time I was more junior in my career and unable to take the feedback, right? Anyways, so unmanageable as always, but luckily everyone that worked at Facebook at the time early on really wanted us to succeed, were really good to us. I don't know if you remember that party I threw. We launched something. I don't remember what it was, but Facebook was, I like planned this little like party, which all of our parties and like meetups are always great. But they were like, here's some money and a team of people to help you. And then and it was just crazy. All of a sudden I had all these resources at my disposal to help me do that. It was at the W in San Francisco. And it ended up just being like, I didn't have to do anything. Like, and like 2 weeks prior, like I was ironing banners and like trying to like keep everyone's coffee cups off of the event things. And I was the one doing everything. And it was just very different to have resources. So from that perspective, it was incredible. There's such good people at Facebook that were at that time so great to us. I think the hard thing was I don't think any of us knew exactly where we fit in to the strategy that is Facebook. Like, why does Facebook need a mobile app developer platform?
Totally.
And I think that it was tricky to watch that part of it happen. And, we'd all come to a startup. We weren't trying to work at a big company, but the food was good. And the people were really nice. And I think we made a lot of progress, just all of us in our careers, and also Parse continued to grow. Obviously it eventually got shut down because it does not make sense for Facebook to have a mobile app platform. It just does not. And I think a good example of an acquisition like that is the Firebase one, which we still see is still going. But yeah, Facebook was good, hard to be managed. I think everyone started leaving, our founders were jumping to different teams. And for me, I just didn't want to be a big company. anymore, I thought. And then I tried another big company and realized I really don't want to be at a big company. And then I jumped back into early stage because that's
Yeah.
where
I think that whole experience really resonates with me. It's funny when I look back, like to your point about being younger, and I mean, it's not that long ago, but I remember how often I would come home and complain to my wife and be like, I have to do this, or somebody told me to do that. And it's like, dude, that's like what a job is. But you know, I think
yeah, and we were being like, I mean, you and I and Hector in particular were like being flown around the world to go to developer events that I had planned.
Exactly.
And it was amazing. And we got to, F8 happened and they were like, Ashley, figure out F8. And I was like, got it, And so there was just so many pieces of that experience that were great. I think that some of the harder things were so many people were trying to give advice and feedback, and we didn't have a singular person that was kind of the person that was helping us understand how we fit in. I think when you put a bunch of big personalities from a startup into a big company, there's going to be some friction. And I do think that, at the end of the day, like, no offense to the South Bay or Peninsula or whatever you call that place, but like we were all living in San Francisco, and it was a very big shift for a lot of us to be in San Francisco, walking to our dinky little office that had just been upgraded to this like nicer office.
Oh, that new office was so sick.
So nice. And then a week later, they were like, just kidding, we're dismantling it, and you're going to go live in Menlo Park. Is that what it's called? Yeah. Facebook campus is beautiful. I'm not complaining about that. Like, very fortunate to have that, but it was just it was a shock to the system. For me, financially, it was my very first time ever having money, and like not even a lot of it, but just like enough to eat. So that was cool, right? And so I'm so thankful for that time. It paid off my student loans. I got to pay off my credit card debt, like all of those things. But there was definitely, so it was a little tricky in some ways. You remember all of it. It wasn't.
Oh yeah. In fact,
could have done a better job of handling it, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the growing up and learning how to go through good experiences that are challenging.
Yeah.
Okay, so one of the other things that I'm particularly interested in, and you having now your own investment fund, obviously that is pretty cool because you get a lens into lots of different companies, and you think about all the developer experiences you've had. Like you're now seeing this wave and shift of AI, and I imagine AI is just like it's this obsession that runs through everything, every conversation. What's that like? What are you seeing?
Every conversation. It's good and bad. The good thing is a lot of people are just trying to build AI for something, right? And that may not be the best approach, but from everyone trying to build something AI related, there's a lot of gems coming out of that are actually pretty interesting. I don't know if we need more AI for lawyers things. Like and that's not what I invest in. So I'm sure it's very useful and important, but we're seeing a lot of that. I think where I get excited and what I'm seeing every single day, a lot of is AI infrastructure pieces. So like AI somehow enabling security to help you build the law more securely. Like that to me is more interesting. I just saw a CI/CD thing that is automated AI CI/CD so that you're not having to do manual testing. So like very specific use cases that empower developers to do their work more effectively, and not like, oh, I'm building a robot that replaces all computers. Like that's not really, I think, where we're at yet. But
yeah, what's your feeling on like the replace versus enhance?
Yeah, I think it's an enhance. I think some stuff needs to be replaced, like not humans, but like some tasks. I'm like, why am I doing this manually? But I think it's an enhance and not a replace. But I think that it's going to compensate. I could be totally wrong. But I think because so much more information and tools and knowledge and everything is coming at us, as a human, we need to be more efficient so that we can manage everything that's happening. And I think that AI will help us do that. I think about 20 years ago, was that 20 years ago? Yeah, 20 years ago and before, like when you think I was an IT intern somewhere, and they were still sending out physical memos, like, and you had to like know how to like address the memo, and it would like, you would send it out like through paper. And that was such a slower process than sending out like 50 emails in 10 seconds. And so I think that AI we need to be more efficient. We're all over, we have too much coming at us. I think it'll make us more efficient. I think the same is true for development. I think developers are getting more and more complexity in their tool stack. I think there's more and more complexity across everything you're building. There needs to be more eyes, and even if that's like automated eyes on what's being built, I think those are pretty interesting use cases.
That's pretty interesting. Are there any particular like technologies that where you're of all of the places of all the things that you're kind of most excited about, like some trend or specific AI thing or specific developer area?
I like the quote unquote boring stuff. It's not boring at all, but I don't get excited about the stuff that's very like buzzy and everyone's trying to do it. I like, this is gonna sound so bad. I like compliance and secure. I'm obsessed with security right now. Like, I think that because we have so much more complexity hitting, that the security issues that we're going to see are just pretty much higher. And so I'm very excited about the security stuff I'm seeing. I think the way that we like store and trade data amongst different products or different tools is kind of weird, and I think that's going to get better. So yeah, I just like the more not boring, the less trendier side of all of it, but it really is just like anything in AI infrastructure is where I get excited.
I think the boring stuff is it's probably boring because people need it, as opposed to like exciting, but maybe you're not going to have budget to pay for it too. I think that's a big part of it that I think about.
Like I want, and like I have, I love what I do. I love working on development products and working with founders. But at the end of the day, I have to make money, because if I don't make money, then I don't have a fund. And so I understand the parts that actually monetize and the parts that make sense in the context of like building, products as a developer. And boring, unfortunately or fortunately, does monetize.
Yeah, which is an important part of building a business.
It's
nice to build cool stuff.
Yeah, it is.
So you have this distinction, at least that you mentioned early on, with respect to Vermilion Cliffs and also just kind of general investing. You talked about technical founders. Talk to me a little bit about that. What does that typically mean for you? Why is that important?
Yeah, there's an interesting kind of person, and like Ilya from Parse is one of them. Like Kevin, James, all of those founders. You need to find a technical founder that can also talk to customers. You probably know this deeply. A founder's job for the first few years, if you're doing it right, is going to be spent a lot of time on the phone or on video chat or in person with customers, thinking about marketing, thinking about go-to-market. But I prefer to work with technical founders that can do the go-to-market side if given a little bit of coaching, but that they're naturally a bit extroverted, or at least can pretend to be a little bit extroverted. I think not all of my founders are deeply technical, but all of them have worked on products that are technical. So like, I consider you to be technical, right? And in your mind, you're like, oh, I worked in sales on technical products. To me, that makes you technical. And so that's how I kind of distinguish it. But really the main key thing I'm looking for are founders that know how to talk to customers and get excited about talking to customers, because they know that customers are just users and that will be excited to use their product and give them feedback and all those things. So I think we're calling it founder-led sales now, but it should just be like what founders is like a part of the founder's job, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny how you have to like describe the action that you're supposed to be doing in a way that like makes it more clear you should do it. It's like you should build a product, so it's a founder building technology or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like we put these taglines on things, but like it's founder-led sales. It really should. It's just like the job. It's like what
yeah, absolutely. I think the way you're thinking about it is awesome. I've worked with so many technical founders who are friends. And there's like usually two scenarios. One is they are so reluctant and just hate talking to customers or potential customers. And you're kind of like, well, that's oxygen to your business, and you got to figure it out. Or you need to be like lucky enough to like hire salespeople, but that assumes you have some revenue. Or there's like the person who's like a good example, I think it Parse is Matt, one of our early software engineers.
Yes. Incredible. Yes.
Yeah, and he builds this like pharmacy delivery product. And him and Jamie spend most of their time presumably coding and then also doing pharmacy stuff. But like if they couldn't keep up with the demands on the technical side, the product probably wouldn't have worked. And I think it's a great example where, now Matt's like, he's a jujitsu, testosterone, customer facing kind of guy. But early on, he was like almost afraid to do it. So he's completely changed, and he still has that technical skill set and that customer skill set.
And he was great when we put him on stage for talks. He was incredible. So he really came. I have a soft spot for everyone at Pars. He's an incredible example of someone who really stepped up, figured out how to be customer facing, got on stage, gave talks, stood in the booth, would talk for hours, and just got better and better and better at it. So
right. Yeah, absolutely. I have kind of like two other sort of follow-up questions, or maybe two final questions for you. One is, I think particularly on competition. So, you mentioned there's sort of the boring companies that are building cool stuff, things that our customers want, Paul Graham style, like build something people want.
yeah.
And obviously there's a lot of competition. So as, when you think about the advice that you give to founders with respect to competition, what's your view on it? Like, how do you think about, is it always aware, you're just kind of like focused on your own thing? How do you make sure that your product is excellent for your customer? You're aware of your competition. How do you make sure it doesn't consume you?
Yeah, I think, and you probably remember me saying this a few times, but it's something I figured out later in my career. You can't be obsessed with your competitors. We need competitors. We want to have multiple people kind of playing in the same market because it's validating and it helps do brand awareness for all of the companies trying to do a similar thing. You can't obsessively watch what they're launching and copy it, because then you look like you're just, a copycat. You want to build things that are unique to what you're creating. Ultimately, it comes down to great product, great marketing, which some founders I think fall into the trap of like, if we built the best product ever, we'll win. And we've seen that time and time again. That is not what happens.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have to have great product, great customer support, great marketing, great sales. You have to really build a full package of a company. And then on top of all of that, you need to be shipping at a pace that is out shipping most of your rivals. And I think that's why it's so interesting when I see people like competing with like a Google or an Amazon, great giant companies, right? And they ship a little bit of everything, and you're always going to be kind of competitive with them if you're building in technical products, but they ship very slowly. They're not moving as quickly as a startup can do. And so I think that the speed at which you can ship at a startup is how you primarily win the earlier market, and then just building a great team that can do all those other pieces. You're always going to have competitors. Like ideally you have competitors, and it's okay. It's not something you should obsess over.
Right. Yeah, I think the speed aspect of things, just looking back at all the best companies that I've worked at in whatever department that I was working with, engineering, sales, marketing,
Yep.
was like always how fast can you ship and keep high quality.
Yep.
If it was slow, like that team just got ground to dust for sure.
Yeah, it just is what happens. And I think something else interesting is a lot of, especially in my market, which is all developers, we're curious beings, right? We want to use the new cool fun thing. And in some ways, being the startup doing something that maybe Google or Amazon are trying to do or starting to do is a good thing, because we'd all kind of prefer to try the new fun thing versus just like turning on a different setting or a different product from a company that's like bigger and a bit scarier. So
it's funny. I don't know what the right word or title for it is, but it's like I'm in this monogamous relationship with Google Docs, but like if there's a new product, I'm gonna go out and try it right away.
Yeah,
Google's like, what's up, dude?
But then we'll always use Google Docs too, but like there's going to be other stuff, and then some of it sticks and we pay for it, and that's great. And sometimes we're like, this is terrible, I'm never going to use it again. So
yeah. So okay, so like last question for you, and this is kind of coming back to the beginning. So Vermilion Cliffs is the new main focus for you. Talk to me a little bit about what you're excited about over the next like 6, 12, 18 months with them. And also just tell me a little bit about what it's like to start this kind of new business. And I know you're unmanageable, but you're still in charge. So what's that like?
I am unmanageable. It is so much fun. It is constant anxiety, because you know that if you fail or if anything goes wrong, or it's all your fault. And that's just part of it. I think that's part of being a founder and part of being, in my case, a solo GP. But it is really, I've loved my whole career. Like everything I've done. Nothing's been perfect, but I'm very appreciative and love all of it. This has been by far the most rewarding and interesting thing I've done because I had to learn, how do you build a fund? Okay, what does the back office look like? How do you raise money from these giant institutional investors? What does it mean to build your network in a way that you're getting deal flow? Like, there's so many pieces and layers to my job. I've heard so many times like, oh, VC's life's so easy. You just kind of talk to founders and write checks. And I was like, I wish. That is like, frankly, like that's about 20% of my day to day. Like, there's so much in fund management and fundraising and just the back office side of having a fund that people don't realize. And especially if you're a solo GP and quote unquote emerging manager, it's a lot of learning, which is fun, and a lot of work just to keep the wheels on. I think I love talking. I get energy from watching founders get excited about what they're building. And I think that if you get to meet with a few of those a day who are so excited to work on what they're building, it kind of transfers and you're like, oh yeah, that is cool. Like, I love that. And I think that I really love. Operating versus investing is interesting. Operating, you're obviously in one thing and you're so deep into that one thing, you don't see outside that bubble. Investing is interesting because you get like a view of everything. And I love it. I like helping the founders figure out things. Like, you and I have seen some things over and over and over again, can give advice that we have a history kind of informing. And I just like, when one of my founders, I have a Slack channel full of all of them and we chat. Really.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And like, one will ask me a question that I'm like, oh yeah, you just do this, here's a link, do that. And I feel like, oh, I helped somebody, this is great. So it's really rewarding work. I'm thankful to my big investors that have helped me get started. And yeah, I love the job. It's great. I'll be doing it until, I can't do it anymore. So I think this is the like long-term career path for me.
Awesome. Well, it sounds super cool. And I love this idea of like Ashley Smith, this grandmotherly helper in this Slack channel. Like, hey, does anybody need help with their,
Yeah,
I think it's great.
It's totally it. I'm like, does anyone need help launching? Like, that's my current.
No, I guess grandmother's the right. It's more like the aunt, right? Like, I don't know.
You can call me grandmother. It's fine. But yeah, no, it's really nice. It's an interesting thing to take all of my experience and all my experience working with so many great people and kind of apply it in a different way. I didn't think I'd be like changing careers is, I guess I didn't think I'd be like changing careers after having such a big operating journey. But it really does, as a transition, make so much sense.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks for spending some time, answering some great questions. Well, the questions were okay, but like your answers were great. So, well, Ashley, thanks so much, and I'll see you again soon.
Yep. Thank you, Scott. Bye.
Yeah.